We're live. Welcome to the show, the 180 Way Show, February 22nd, 2023. We made it another week. Jack Sonny, your host.
Coach Mike Tanker.
Yes. I never know what you're going to go with your little title at the bottom. So it keeps me on my toes. It's great. Keep everything popping. Hey, hope everybody's doing great. Today, if you've seen the LinkedIn lead up to this show, it's going to be, hey, everyone says they want to work from home or not be in the office. And we're just going to talk about that dynamic today. And were you designed to be a work from home person? Because the results are mixed. And so that will be the topic of today's show. Before we jump in, anything happening, Mike? I'm getting ready to move spots. This will be the last time you'll see. If it all goes well, I'm moving, so you will never see this background again. That's happening. That's how I'm spending the next couple of days. Anything happening?
Today is Ash Wednesday, so if you see some friends out there with a little ash on their little black spot on their head, just realize they're observing, and 40 days to prepare.
Yes,
our hearts and minds for Easter. So I read the other day that somebody said. Yeah, you can't just pull that off. You can't get ready over the weekend. It takes 40 days to get ready. And I have an all new appreciation for Lent. So good stuff.
Yeah, I would just say in my youth, all of that was just I had a buddy go to Tulane for grad school, and all my youth was about Mardi Gras. And the first part of this endeavor, and maybe not as much as should have been on the second half of this holiday or this observance. So Ash Wednesday. And then we'll go into Lent and then celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. So be great. I'm sure we will hit on that in the coming weeks. Yes.
It's funny you said that because I didn't even think once yesterday was Fat Tuesday. So
progressing.
Times are changing.
I go through my Facebook, and every once in a while somebody pulls out one of those photos from like 20 years ago. You go, ooh, whoa. All right. Well, on that note, hey, we want to thank. Got to pivot away from those. Want to thank i.help for sponsoring the show. If you're unfamiliar, i.help aggregates everything you have online into one spot. And what's great is they will integrate to whatever you're using today. So whatever web conferencing system, or if you have an online scheduling platform that you use, they'll integrate that into one spot where folks can go to one page on the internet, your landing page or a page they'll give you. And everyone that's interested in all of your content can see it in one spot. Again, your web conferencing, all your social media stuff, website, if you have a podcast, any videos. If you're doing transactions, they'll actually integrate with your electronic payment system as well. They'll let you share large files. Sometimes when I do this intro, I forget that, but we've all sent an email to large file. And then you get that thing, it's too big, and you're like, what do I do now? And how do I get it to the person? And they'll actually allow you to exchange large files, which is amazing. You can initiate all your calls, emails, and messages from there. And so thankful for i.help sponsoring the show. So go get your i.help account. It's like $5 a month. Amazing platform. Certainly one of the tools, almost mandatory now with this work from home, manage from home dynamic, where so many times folks send out like, oh, here's how to reach me, and here's another email, here's my website, and here's my social media stuff. And so what a great way to aggregate everything. And so you can just send folks one link, one page, and it's all there. So encourage you to set up your i.help account. $5, I believe, a month. So go do that. Appreciate them sponsoring the show. Amen. Great. So again, I want to dive into the topic. This is the, I don't know if you saw my LinkedIn post or when Mike commented, and forwarded it. It's like, hey, everyone says they want to go work from home and what that would be. And it has this great work-life balance process, but it really is challenging when you think about, hey, what is the ideal work environment for you, right? Like what works for you? Because I think two things have happened. I think folks were not prepared to go work from home. That was one. And then secondly, I think just doesn't necessarily apply to everybody, but folks have decided that the metrics or the paradigm or what was defined success previously is either lower now or not the same, or hey, I don't need to do this or that. So really interesting when you think about that dynamic. You're like, oh, well, yeah, I want to work from home, but I don't know if I want to put in 50 calls a day or get my 2 demos or so many lines of code or get these tasks done. And so that's really what folks are struggling with, trying to figure out, hey, yes, a lot of folks have that option now, but is that the right design for you based upon where you are in your life and your career, right?
I back when it first started, Jack, you and I worked together on a study on, how people who is adapting well to work from home without really any guidelines. It was kind of self-guided, and there were some folks that seemed to be thriving right out of the gate, and they were the folks that were intentional about their time, their sequencing, and what they were going to do with their day. And I think it's really important that those people are still thriving and loving, the work from home environment. And it was, first of all, it was, what am I going to do with that extra time that used to be my commute? How can I reassign that time to another type of something that I would love to have added to my life? One of those things that I wish I had time to do that. Well, a lot of people said, I just picked up 2 hours. The excuses are gone. What am I going to do with that time? And what's great about it is that if you were really good at intentionally reallocating that 2 hours into something else that's important in your life, well, now you're willing to do work extra hard to keep that privilege. That, hey, my life, I squared everything away. I'm squared and tight. I don't want to go back to the office. I've figured out my life works pretty good from this angle. And those folks they're for the most part thriving and doing more productive work because they've got those extra things in their life. And then just like anything, the folks that just kind of took it accidentally,
I think they're struggling. A lot of the things you read online are there's two variables. One is employees, staff are not as productive as they used to be. And then two, the folks that are, even the folks you're speaking about, are having a hard time detaching because now their work has become part of their house and what's happening and when do they turn it off and when do managers ping them or coworkers and what are the boundaries? It was very clear, for a lot of folks when I left the office, maybe you text me or whatever, or I'll get back to you tomorrow. And now the folks, even the ones that are having success and meeting metrics, which really seems to be the minority of people, because a lot of companies, as you see with the layoffs and the mandates to come back to work, are really struggling to get the same work product completed. But even the folks that, again, are completing well and being efficient, some of them are like, oh, I don't know how to detach. I don't know how to detach. And I don't know how to tell my coworkers and certainly my superiors, hey, it's 8:30. This is really not my normal work time.
Well, there's sort of 3 groups in there, Jack. There's one group that did really well but didn't have any boundaries. So just kept working, and they just toasted. They burnt out, right? Because they never defined the line between work and not work. And so that they did all the intentionality of setting up a great work life at home. They didn't keep it from bleeding into the rest of their lives. And then that middle group would probably be a group that I think in my mind, I picture a castle with a moat around it. Like you got to put a moat around your work. Like and then you cross the moat at the end of the day and you're gone, right? You're like, you just cross over that moat and I'm not coming back until the morning. And a lot of folks did that by like walking, going outside, having just a little 15-minute outside activity, which is so healthy, but move out of the house, which it was your office before you left, and then come back in and it's home, right? And just whether it's 15 or 30 minutes, just and maybe tomorrow morning you have another ritual where you walk outside and you do something else, whether it's pruning flowers or walking around the block, and then okay, it was my home when I left. Now when I come back, it's my office, and having that delineation. And the third group is that group we were talking about a little bit that just never really found they had to work from home. There was some upside to it, but long term, it just really drained on them. It wasn't the right fit.
Yeah.
You know, like one of your favorite sayings is "square peg, round hole." And
Oh,
you know, it's just so like you can pound that sucker in there, but it's just not a long term solution. And so those folks, you know, that it's the square peg. They need to find their square hole, which might be, you know, back in the office,
right.
work,
Actually,
working in the office.
yeah, it actually might be. You know, we have some of the stats in some of the most recent polling. This is kind of the stats that are out there currently that, you know, about a quarter of the folks want to stay home totally. Don't ever, you know, call me when you need me. I'll be here. It seems like now that this is settled in, about 25% of the folks want to go back to the office, right? They're like, oh, I miss my coworkers. I need the structure of the office. I need the infrastructure. I need some of the resources available, teamwork, you know, some of the stuff we talked about last week. And, you know, now it looks like about half the folks, you know, have decided this hybrid model would be great. I'm willing to come in, you know, 2 to 4 days a week and, you know, kind of have some extended time at home and also be in the office. And what's really interesting about that middle part, which to me is like, it's really where we've grown into. And it'll be interesting to see a year from now how folks feel about the hybrid part, because I think it's a way of not saying I don't want to go back 5 days a week, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, does 3 days a week work? Does 2 days a week work? You know, how will that play out a year from now? Will those folks be like, oh, I want to go back totally from home, I hate hybrid? Or will they be like, hybrid's great? Or will they feel like, oh, hybrids, the 3 days is good, but I really need 4 or 5? And, you know, kind of reluctantly getting back to what a more traditional, what we've known for years. We're like, no, to go back to pre-COVID 5 days a week commuting. But again, I just want to put that back up. You know, that's where it sits today. You know, kind of 25, again, want to stay at home, 25 want to go to the office, and 50% seem to say they want the hybrid. But I don't think we have a vast amount of data on the hybrid experience. It'll be interesting to see, again, a year or two from now, how those percentages change.
And I think that one of the things that obviously working from home exclusively requires a management style that is exclusively working from home, working in the office. I think we learned a lot working from home that actually can apply back to better management back in the office.
Yeah.
And I think in the middle, I think as a manager, if I was going to be highly effective, I would wake up each day going, is this an office day? I'm going to manage like I manage differently on an office day than I manage on a virtual day, and be intentional about, like, don't try to like, oh yeah, and I'm the hybrid manager. No, you're not the hybrid manager. You're the, you know, 60% of your week you're the virtual manager, and 40% of the week you're the out office manager. Because at the hybrid, it's almost like I shot at 2 targets and I missed them both.
Right.
So
it's an old analogy. Look, 1 foot's in frozen water, 1 foot is in
the hot water.
On average, you're fine, but you're really dead. Right. You don't want to be that. Yep.
Right. So
I think what happens here, what you mentioned, I brought this up, like these little chips, if you could see it, it's that part. People are trying to jam, love this picture where they're trying to jam, you know, this peg into the hole and pieces come flying off, right? They're not necessarily making it work productively. They're forcing it in, and hence you get the chips on the side and the hammer trying to make it work. And I think really that's what we spent this year in the last 6 months focusing on, is how do we actually manage from home and work from home productively and not forcing it, right?
You know, it's interesting, Jack, contextualizing that image with the chips to the concept of quiet quitting, that those chips are the gung-ho attitude.
There they are.
Yeah. Are the go the extra mile for the company. Those chips are, I represent the company in everything I do. Those chips are, I do whatever it takes to get the job. I'm a hard worker. You know, like, let's just get the job done. Let's roll up our sleeves tonight. It's pizza night. And if all those things got chipped off trying to square, you know, force somebody back to the office, or even force somebody to work from home that wants to be back at an office. Yeah. You know, either way, when you're putting that square peg in the round hole, you're going to end up with an employee that, you know, sometimes just the bare minimum, you know, just enough to stay around. And that's not winning, right? That's not winning. That's not moving either way and moving the needle positively.
So interesting. No, I don't think many people talk about that. There are people that definitely want to go back to the office that the company said, no, we don't have an office anymore. And some of those people are actually at risk as well, right?
Absolutely.
Funny.
It's like, not, we're all around peg, right? But we all have different holes. You know what I mean? It's like there's a hole that's perfectly fit for me, and it's not, and we need to pay attention that all the folks that it could require, like, if you as a company decided you're going virtual, you definitely need to introduce some criterion in your hiring that you're looking for things that point towards somebody that will thrive working from home. A couple of questions like, tell us about what you like about working in the office. Like what's the most important part of a team to you? Do you like to win better alone or win better together? Those are great questions that may lend itself towards, maybe you should go look for an organization that has offices that you could work from.
Oh yeah, and what is the infrastructure where you are? Because if you have, children that are young children, maybe you don't want to put them in daycare, or the internet, where you are, like I'm in a place now where the internet's not great. You know what I mean? Like there's infrastructure issues and environmental issues that are real. You know what I mean? Like even if you want it, it may not work or maybe you have a loud, environment, or there's construction going on, or, there's so many things that we never thought about before that are real variables. So I think it's getting to this, like, hey, what's the best work environment? Is it your home? And I think the biggest thing is to be intentional, to be intentional. Most of us got thrown into work from home, managed from home suddenly from, COVID. And now hopefully you don't have COVID there with that cough. No. And so now it's, hey, now that it's live and everything's kind of in flux, what intentionally, as you step back and think about it, where do you thrive? Like Mike and I constantly have this debate in our text about, hey, like what would you want to do today if you have the complete option and money was not an issue? What would you do today? Like, what would you get up and endeavor to do that was fulfilling and synergistic and not you weren't mandated to do? Right. And so I think that's so critical now as folks think about the work environment. Again, for that graphic, what is the best work environment for you now that we've experienced the office? We were forced to experience all work from home. And now there's a lot of options out there in the middle. What works best for you based upon your life and the Andy Stanley question, right? Based upon your life and where you are, what's the best option for you, right?
And that Andy Stanley question is a really good one, Jack, because it's basically, you need to ask this question for you, right? Is work from home great? Well, the real question is work from home great for you?
What's the question? Do the whole thing.
So based upon where you've been, where you are, and where you're going in your life, right? Your history or experience, your present situation, and your goals for the future, what is the best answer for you? What is the best thing for you to do? Right. And it's really a great model for framing the question personally, right? Because everybody's got an answer for us, but they're answering your question from their persona.
True.
It's very hard to answer to answer a question from somebody else's persona. It's, it might be impossible, but, it's weighing it out, helping. And that's what we can do as friends, is not tell them how to do it. Just ask some questions and help them weigh it out well based upon who they are and what they want from life.
Yeah. It's so good, that question, because I think we get into herd mentality, right? It's like we sometimes we talk about young people and where they are and their peer pressure and But if we're honest, as even no matter what age group you're in, we have this herd mentality. We saw it with COVID, and without opening a can of worms, are you getting vaccinated or not getting vaccinated? And the peer pressure to get vaccinated was definitely there from everywhere, right? And we kind of have this herd mentality a lot of times, and folks don't want to necessarily stand out or go against the grain. And so being able to figure that out for yourself, because what may work for really all of your friends where they love work from home or they want to go back to the office may not be best for you where you are and your experiences and what you do. And I just think it's critical. And that's really the message for today's show is to just want to encourage folks to step back, take in all the feedback of what the office is and entails and the logistics and the commute and, the kind of the oversight. And then work from home, what that is, the flexibility, how work now is in your home. Do you have the right infrastructure? How does it affect your family? How does it affect everyone around you? What are the logistics? Are you able to turn it off? Right. And then now a lot of companies also offering that kind of hybrid model of maybe it's a couple of days a week or one day a week or whatever that kind of combination is. And so just want to encourage folks to be intentional about the both analysis of it. And then, as you mentioned, Mike, the outcome for you personally, because it may be different than most of the people around you.
Yeah, it definitely sets it up, Jack, that if somebody ever asks you, hey, do you think I should go back? My company wants me to go back to the office. Do you think I should? That depends. I mean, like that depends. Depends on what? Depends a lot on you and who you are. And I think that, sometimes we push back for the sake of pushing back, right? Like we could be pushing back, and going back to the office could be the best thing for our psyche, for our for everything. And we're just trying to push back. Like, I don't like to be told what to do. Like, nobody does, but you were told to go home and you went home. Like, now
we didn't do that. I think that's one of the biggest dynamic that has changed in post-COVID is that folks forget we did a lot of things at work we didn't want to do. You know what I mean? There was a lot of assignments, process, overtime, meetings, whatever it is. We did a lot of things. Yeah, we did a lot of things we did not want to do. And then we all went home and had this enormous amount of flexibility. And then now that we're asked to do some things on the backside, folks are just there's something more pushback or more analysis. There's not, hey, I am a corporate citizen and here are the rules and I'm going to follow them. There is a lot of debate almost about every single thing that companies are trying to like either institute or share. And what's really interesting, there's just kind of friction, but there really shouldn't be. There's really not like the company is trying to succeed, ROI, stay in business. Employees want the same thing, so they have longevity and are paid well, and what have you. Hopefully, you like where you are, like where you are employed, But there's just butting of heads, like you just said. It's like people just sometimes just want to say no or push back because like that's just the mindset we're in from everything we in the country went through during COVID, both COVID and the riots and just everyone kind of looking at where they are in life. And now there's any little thing, there's kind of this automatic pushback. You're like,
well, very few people don't have some form of rebellious spirit. Like just I don't want to be told what to do. And listen, we get that because we're all dealing with it. Like there's nobody that's going back to the office or not going back to the office that doesn't deal with this sense of I don't like being told what to do. Some adapt better to it, and some people don't adapt at all to it. But we all struggle a little bit with that, and it's really, it would be so healthy because everybody has access to a resume. Find out what's best for you. Like pay attention to yourself. And if you're being forced to go back to the office and that's really just not what you're wired for now that you've tasted the other side and you thrived, be honest, you thrived working from home, not that you enjoyed the free time, but you thrived as a productive human being from home. And maybe the answer is for you, but if you're pushing back against going back to the office and you realize I used to get a lot more work done when I left home and I had that, I was sort of, somebody needs to force that delineation upon me. I'm not very good with a blurry work life, home life balance. I need somebody to be like, here's the line. It's the road from your office to your house. That's the line between work and home. And so, you've got to check in with yourself to see what's best for you. And I think that as a company, I think it's really healthy too to say, we talked about this before, don't punt on working from home, either adapting to a hybrid or maintaining 100% work from home for some folks, because you mishandled it, right? It's still not too late to try to make a new plan because you got to have a plan. You have a transition plan to move people back to the office. That's a transition plan, or you just have a next phase plan or plan WF work from home 2.0 or 3.0, depending on where you're at with your organization, but an adjustment. I think it all needs consideration now.
I think what's in there too, two things. One is, WeWork and facilities like that, right when COVID, kind of started a little before COVID, but same concept. There was this movement brewing with WeWork and these other kind of, hey, you're leaving your home, but you're not really going to an office. You're kind of going to a combined space that, has a little bit of a corporate feel, but let you get away, a little more loose than most corporate environments, right? It kind of had a kind of familial fraternity kind of loose, sitting at a Starbucks kind of feel to it. And so WeWork and some companies were trying to capitalize on that, and took a hit certainly because most people went work from home, and now you're like, well, I don't need to go to WeWork. So they're trying to work through their model, but there is that. So maybe that's another option as you look at it. Like maybe you don't go back to your office, but you go to one of these shared working spaces, so you find a balance. I think that's one. And then the second one I think really critical, I want to make sure we don't end the show before we talk about, is just really encourage folks to deep dive on all aspects of working for a company, because what happens what happens in certain cases, folks make the leap like, I'm not doing that. And then they jump off on their own, or they do something different, and they take for granted some of the institutional things they've took for granted for years. Like, oh, here are my benefits. Here's my regular pay. Here's some ancillary things, my network of people, some of the applications you have access to maybe in a big corporate environment. And so if all that's gone, make sure as you're kind of analyzing what's right for you, you don't miss a lot of the sometimes unseen subconscious things. Like if you've been working for a company for 10 years, or a certain company, or in a division, all those things can get a little lost. And all of a sudden, if you're like, oh, I'd love to work from home, and you're not going to allow me, then I quit. And then all of a sudden, like, oh my gosh, I don't have healthcare. And oh, my 401k is not getting matched. Oh, I was using Microsoft Office or whatever, and now I don't have access to it. Oh, my laptop was a company laptop. I don't have that either. You know what I mean? So there's sometimes we can be, the grass is greener thing over there, like, oh, if I just had independence and have flexibility. And so just make sure as you're doing that analysis of the decision you want to make and where you want to live or where you want to work, what fits best for you, that you really do take account of all the kind of unsaid things you may be taking for granted that come with working for a company.
It's funny, Jack, when I was younger, I went to I had a mentor that I respected and asked a lot of questions to, and something changed at work. I didn't like it. And he goes, how's work? And he goes, and he just started asking me a couple guys, I'm getting my resume out. I'm going to blah, 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 blah. And he asked me a couple of questions. He goes, well, what about this? It's sort of like going down an inventory of what you just said, Jack. 401k, do they have a 401k match? Oh yeah, they do. It's really generous. And so your health insurance, you pay a lot for health insurance. Oh no, it's great health insurance. And he's sort of, and so he did that for about maybe 2 minutes. And then at the end, based upon my answers, he said, you have an attitude problem. Listen, whoever's hearing me right now, I know you don't want to hear that because I've never wanted to hear that. But in retrospect, those were good words. And we need to make sure that we're not just having a bad attitude about whatever's going on, that there's something good. Grass is greener is a dangerous reality. The grass is greener, that we all think that. It's a truth that we think that. But when you get to the other side, right, there's somebody else sitting over there thinking how good your grass is.
So true.
And Angel, my wife, always says, listen, the grass is always green on the side, but somebody's still got to cut it. You know what I mean? You always got to cut it.
Grass is greener is where you water it, right? We've all heard that phrase, and it's like, And so I love that, what you just said. It is true. Wherever you think you want to be, or some entrepreneurial venture, or some organization, whatever, somebody's doing that today, right now, at February 22nd at 12:28 Eastern. Somebody's doing that job and hates it. They have that. Whatever your dream life is, somebody's doing that today. And all they're thinking is, I just want to go work for a big company, and I'll go in the office every day, and I want to leave at 6 and not to think about it. You know what I mean? It is one of those things. So it's just so important. Again, our push for folks is to be intentional about what works for you, because again, I think this chart is going to get modified. I don't know how it ends. My theory of a thirds, it'll probably go a third, a third, a third. But it's just it'll be interesting again a year or two from now when folks feel like, hey, what are the things that work for me and what don't at a micro level? What are all the variables? and how do you perform your best? Because that's really what it's about. When, it's all said and done, we all want to look back and be like, "Ooh, that was my best stuff." You know what I mean? None of us want to leave. The worst is when you feel like you left something on the table, or you missed an opportunity, or you kind of misanalyze the situation. So just don't fall victim to, oh, this is what my company's doing, and this is what everyone else is doing, so this is what I have to do. We've been at this a while now, a couple of years since 2020, right? March 2020, we all went home, and now it's like, hey, what now works best for me, right?
And it's not a zero-sum game. It's not an on-off decision where it's like, this is 100% great and this is 100% bad. And so what we need to try to do is really identify the trade-offs. Like, what am I trading off? If I stay at home, what am I trading off? What's my trade-off? What do I get? What do I lose? What do I get more of? What do I get less of? And then if I go back to the office, what do I get more of? What do I get less of? What do I get more of? What do I get less of? And then write those down and look at them and evaluate them back to what Jack and I talked about, based upon where I've been, where I am, and where I think I'm going. What's the right set of trade-offs which equate to the best decision for me?
Yeah. The last part of that question is so important, where I want to go. Yeah. Because a lot of people, we've all heard of midlife crisis, and people are unhappy with their life and their career. It's because they let the world blow them in a certain way. And so being intentional, figuring out what you want your life to look like 2, 3, 5 years from now will be one of the biggest variables to what works best for you, because we all don't have the same vision of what our life looks like, 3 or 5 years from now. And so encourage you to, as Mike said, write it down. The more specific you are, what your life looks like 5 years from now, a lot of those decisions get really easy. The more vague it is, like, oh, I run into people all the time, just want to be a millionaire. And you're like, okay, well, like next year, 6 months from now, 20 years from now, those are very different decision points, right? So encourage you to be very intentional and specific with your future, what the future you looks like.
And we use that word intentionality, and just as you were talking, Jack, it hit me that if you do have a good plan, it will breed intentionality. Like, the better your plans are, the more formed they are, the more you buy into them and want them, the more intentional you become towards achieving them. The two go together. And if you're not making plans, you're winging it day to day or moment to moment. And guess what? You're just kind of, there's no intentionality, there's no priority. It's kind of, blowing with the wind, or, going with the waves. Like, hey, the waves up, it's a good day. Waves down, it's a bad day. Like, you can take some control of that by having a plan and then doing your best to work that plan.
Small miracle today that the construction's been drilling all my ceiling all day stopped during the show. So see,
they're watching live.
They're upstairs. Cut it. We got to watch the show.
Jack's on downstairs. Got to go.
Hey, man, look, he threw the switch. I hear the internet. Great. Hey, listen, want to remind folks, go get your I.Help account. $5, best investment you'll make in this new work from home, manage from home world. Aggregate all of your online stuff. Appreciate I.Help. Go get your I.Help account. Appreciate them sponsoring the show. Amen. Any last thoughts, Michael?
Evaluate what's best for you and then bring it to pass.
Amen. And do me the Andy Stanley question again.
Based upon where you've been, where you are, and where you're headed, what is the best decision for you?
Amen. Right. We'll see you next week. Have a great end of February. Talk to you soon.